to this afternoon's session with our candidates. We really appreciate their taking the time to meet with us and be able to talk on educational issues. I'm Tim Doran with the Elementary Association. With me to help facilitate is Chris Wrightham with the Secondary. So we will be facilitating. Gail is in front here. She's going to be our timer. And we appreciate everyone who gave input to the questions that we'll be addressing to our candidates this afternoon. So we have with us Bob Bird, who is an independent running for the Alaska Independence Party running for Senate. Liz Cannell, a.k.a. Ted Stevens. Okay, she's here representing Ted running for Senate. Mark Begich, candidate for the U.S. Senate, and Don Young, candidate for the U.S. House. So we're very glad to have him. If you give him a quick round of applause and welcome him. So we are going to keep him on a very tight timeline. And to start us off, we will be giving each an opportunity for a 1-minute opening statement, and we will follow up with questions, at which they will have 2 minutes each to answer the question, and then we will have a 1-minute close. And we will be alternating who is the first to receive each time. So, Bob, if you would start us off with your 1-minute opening.
Well, first of all, I'd like to recognize my boss, who's fully 20 years younger than me, John O'Brien at Nikiski High School. Would you stand up, please, John? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, the opinions expressed by me do not necessarily represent those of John O'Brien, Nikiski High School, or the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District. As a matter of fact, this is where I'm really quite delighted to be, because whenever we get the latest federal bureaucratic directive or fad come down to us, and I want to stand up, and John's never seen this because after 35 years I've learned to keep my mouth shut a lot better than I used to. But I was told very often, Bob, this is not the place to debate these educational policies. If you want to do something about it, run for the U.S. Senate. So that's why I'm here. I now have a chance to tell you why a bureaucrat in Washington, D.C., 5,000 miles away, doesn't know how to handle education. And we are facing this onerous task of trying to fit a round peg in a square hole. And so I will be politically incorrect with most of my comments today.
Okay, Liz Cannell.
Thanks, Tim. I'm Liz Connell, and I've worked for Senator Ted Stevens in Washington for 14 years. Many of you know me. You've been to visit in Washington, or I've seen you here in Alaska. Unfortunately, the Senator could not be here today. I can assure you he would much rather be here today than being in Washington, D.C. However, I did speak to him earlier in the day, and he asked me to extend to all of you his thanks for the wonderful job that you're doing bringing up our next generation of kids. He doesn't think there's anything more important as a responsibility that we have than educating our children. And you're doing a great job. We are looking forward to hearing your thoughts on how No Child Left Behind, or whatever successor it has, is reauthorized in a way that fits Alaska. And I look forward to answering questions and talking to you further today.
Thank you. Mark Begich.
Thank you very much, Tim, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. The forums that we have like this are great opportunities for you to ask questions to understand where we stand on the issues. You know, this election I think is very critical for Alaska. It will set the tone for the next 20 and 30 years of what we're going to do as a state. As a father of a young 6-year-old, I care deeply about the issues of this great state, but we have some challenges. Maybe the energy issue, healthcare crisis, what we're going to do about education throughout the state to make sure it's accessible to everybody. The issues we face are going to be very critical. And what we decide in this election, as I said, will set the tone. You know, as someone who comes from a family of educators, my father and mother were educators, my 2 sisters are educators, my sister-in-law is an educator. I hear every single day, it seems, about the issues that we struggle with. And as a product of an education system, the education system here in Anchorage. I talked to a woman just briefly today. One of the things she asked me, over at AFN was, what do you think is the most important thing? And I asked her the same question back. And what did she respond? Making sure we have good education that's accessible to everyone, because that makes a difference for job creation and dealing with the future generation. So I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mark. Don Young?
First, let me thank all of you for being here. Not everybody is here. We came in the entrance here and everybody was leaving, and it had me concerned. As an educator, Bob Bird's teaching now, and of course Mark comes from an education family. I taught 11 years, and my wife's family taught, and I'm very interested in education. I'm somewhat disappointed in the state by the dropout rate, and that's something I think we all should address. Where are we failing? And if we are failing, how is it happening? We must address that. So we're here really to answer your questions. I'm very actively involved, have been in supporting education, including 648, and I will work to make sure that bill is passed in the next session.
Thank you very much, and you're all right on time. We appreciate that. Okay, our first question, and this will start with Liz as we do our rotations. You will be faced with the reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, currently also nicknamed NCLB. What are your top 3 priorities for improving this law?
Thank you, Tim. Probably Senator Stevens' top priority in reauthorizing the elementary and secondary education is to make sure that flexibility is built into that legislation, which was not originally built into it. While he believes very, very strongly that every child in Alaska and every child in America needs to be held to the highest standards, he believes that local school districts and principals and teachers are the best judges of how to fulfill that responsibility, and parents, and to educate our children. So he wants to make sure that flexibility is built in. He also is intent on reauthorizing within that framework the Alaska Native Education Equity Act, which he authored 6 years ago, which brings about $34 million every year into Alaska to support programs across the state aimed at increasing achievement of our Alaska Native students, whether they be in rural or urban schools. And finally, I think that he wants to make sure that you as principals and teachers and local school districts have the resources that you need to do your job in the best way that you can to educate our children.
Thank you, Mark.